20. Blair.
Jeff Blair, 40 Oakland Ave, Chairman of the Planning Board. We move that the town vote to accept Article 49 as printed in the town meeting warrant to amend Section 6.11.20.f, Area and Dimensional Regulations, within Section 6.11.0, Village Planned Unit Development. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, MGL Chapter 40A, the Zoning Act, a public hearing on the subject article with due notice was conducted by the Planning Board at 7 p.m. on Monday, March 13, 2017, in the second floor hearing room of the Hanover Town Hall. Said public hearing notice was printed in the Hanover Mariner Wednesday, February 22nd, 2017, and March 1st, 2017. This article submitted by the Planning Board would amend Section 6.11.20 VPUD. The article will add new language. The buffer area shall apply to a VPUD except to the extent that the requirements of this subsection are reduced, amended, or waived by the Planning Board for good cause shown, consistent with the purposes of Section 6.11.0 Village Planned Unit Development of this zoning bylaw. The Planning Board feels that the proposed additional language will allow future flexibility for the board while streamlining the permitting process of VPUD development. Each year, one of the Planning Board's goals is to improve the current zoning bylaws and propose amend language to further the current regulations. The Planning Board feels it is in the best interest of the community to have the ability to work with applicants and developers regarding the mixture of housing in VPUD development.
Question for you before we leave the microphone. Up above in the article, you refer to 6.11.20F, and in your motion, you said same, but in the motion that I have in my warrant and in the supplement, it says 6.11.30A.
That is a typo.
So the correct is 6.11.20F, as you said.
Correct.
So as moved. Questions or comments? Ms. Ryerson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. By Ryerson, 1 Folly Hill Lane. I urge town meeting not to accept this amended zoning bylaw. A buffer area of 50 feet is approximately from where I am standing to perhaps 10 feet from where that railing is there. That's nothing if you're a homeowner in a residential area and someone's putting a big project in your side yard. People invested in this town, and I say this with respect to the Planning Board, so that they would have room. It's not a city yet, and yet we're supposing here that we're going to decrease the buffer area to 50 feet. Very convenient for a developer, not necessarily good for a homeowner or someone who has bought for quiet enjoyment. It also talks about allowing driveways and egress to the project over that buffer area. So if that buffer area is swamp, that means mitigation of the wetland area. How wide an area? It's non-specific. But allowing access roads and driveways probably just deletes any kind of privacy at all. There are certain things that we're trying to avoid in this town. Right now, we're working with marginal land. We know that. We've got a lot of water in Hanover. So are we trying to protect our taxpayer rights and our homeowner rights, or are we trying to make it easier in the things we do for developers to come in and have their way with the town? This is a question we have to ask ourselves when we allow these variances that develop the town more fully. Do we want to be Hanover? Do we want to be like Norwell, Duxbury, Hingham, Pembroke, and other towns? Or do we want to be like Braintree and Weymouth? And I know what happened to Weymouth. I grew up there. As soon as we started allowing all this stuff, the country nature of the town was gone. I don't want to see that here. I love it too much. Thank you.
Mr. Paleo, to Ms. Ryerson's comments, that buffer zone of 50 feet, what are we changing it from?
Well, I think the intent of this is really focused on the mall and to allow the planning board to have flexibility in negotiating and working with the developers who are proposing proposing a redevelopment of the mall to relax certain setbacks. To our knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are no new proposals for additional planned developments within town. I don't think there is enough land to actually do that. But there isn't a specific requirement that we're saying that we're relaxing it to. What we're asking the town to give the planning board is the freedom to negotiate on behalf of the town to relax where we think is appropriate. All our meetings are open to the public, and we welcome you to join us to see how the proceedings would go forward.
Mr. Pilata.
Mr. Moderator, it's really difficult, 22 Tilden Lane, it's really difficult to determine what we're relaxing, because you're not, in the past, again, this goes back to the way this warrant is being presented. In the past, we would have the old language, and the new language would be a strike through or it would be bold, and that's not the case on this. The VPUD was 2 to 3 years of study that we did before we passed that. My recollection of it, but I don't have it in front of me, and it's not in the warrant, was it's any parcel along Route 53, that you had to be contiguous to Route 53. So it's not going to pop up on Broadway. It's not going to pop up on King Street. It had to be on 53. But there were setbacks established because there are residences abutting 53. So it's really hard to follow this. And, you know, the mall this is the 4th mall owner since I've been in town government, maybe the 5th. Every one of them comes in here saying they're going to change the world and Hanover's going to be wonderful when they're done. And it never happens. We change zoning to allow assisted living. We change zoning to allow more density at the mall. We have a zone for the mall. It's called the Planned Shopping Center District. If you want to amend the Planned Shopping Center District to help the mall, you should do that. By amending the VPUD, you're affecting every parcel on 53. This is not a good article, and it should be passed over. I voted no.
Further questions or comments? You coming down to comment?
Rich Salvucci, 37 Pine Street. Yes, it's interesting to know 53 partial. I'm actually familiar with all the boards right now. I live on 37 Pine Street. The 50-foot buffer was completely cleaned out in the business behind me right now. Excuse me. So I know what it's like to have everything removed. So if it's going to affect all of 53, all the residents of Pine Street, everything's going to be wiped out. You'll hear the traffic, you'll see it. It's ridiculous, so I voted down too, please. Thank you.
Further questions or comments under Article 49? Mr. Palaio.
Jeff Palaio, 40 Oakland Ave, Chairman of the Planning Board. Just one point of clarification that this article is directed to the VPUD buffer area specifically. And as far as I'm concerned, or know about the Route 53 corridor, there is not a 25-acre parcel with 10 buildable acres available for this zoning district, if you will. There are specific requirements within the VPUD. This isn't actually taking away from buffer zones or reducing them. It's just trying to allow the planning board the flexibility to work with the developer to relax them where it makes sense. Doesn't mean that we're going to go ahead and make a 50-foot buffer zone to a 10-foot buffer zone where it abuts a residential neighborhood. It just allows us the flexibility. Right now, we don't have any flexibility in working with a developer that wants to develop a parcel in a VPUD manner.
Questions or comments? I'll go to Ms. Ryerson and then to Mr. Palala.
Hi, Ryerson, 1 Folly Hill Lane. In due respect, sir, Mr. Moderator, it doesn't mean that you will, but it doesn't mean that you won't. So it allows you to do something that can be considered not in the good interest of residents. We can't have spot zoning. There's certain things we can't do. We allow this article, we're opening Pandora's box. Other changes happen and things happen, and before we know it, as I said before, we've edged our way into a very liberal stance on commercial development that perhaps we didn't pay for when we moved here. Thank you.
Mr. Pilata. Mr. Moderator, when we passed, Dan Pilata, 22 Tilden Lane, when we passed the hotel district up on Route 53, we had a 300-foot buffer to protect the residents of Blue Spruce in the Woodland Drive area. Essentially, this will wipe out that 300 feet to 50 and allow a VPUD to go all the way up against those residences, because that parcel can reach Route 53, especially now that that developer has 110 acres connected through the Verizon parcel that he bought. So this is a serious issue, and it needs more study, and this should be passed over till we can figure it out. The town of Hanover just spent 5, 6, 7, 8 years fighting a 40B proposal, and in a very rare instance was successful in defeating it. And I give the Board of Selectmen a lot of credit and the town manager for fighting that long and going the long haul. You're going to throw it all away with this amendment. You're going to just throw it away because the development's going to be unregulated, and it's going to be you're giving way too much authority to an elected board. The zoning controls the town, not the planning board. The planning board ensures that it meets the zoning. The zoning needs to be strict or lenient, but at least we should know what we're voting on, have a chart showing us the parcels that affects. We have nothing. When we had planning board articles in the past, we had maps, showed where they were affected, how it was done. This has not been done on this one. This article's premature. The idea may be good. The planning board may be frustrated that they can't help them all. They can come back. I would recommend that you vote no and you turn this down.
Ms. Smith, I believe.
Nicole Smith, 99 Donna Drive. As a homeowner on Donna Drive, we had to deal with this with the new development that is going in on 53. My curiosity was if this did pass, whether or not they could come back to try to clear a bigger buffer zone or put a throughway through to Donna Drive. That has already been voted down because they got the 2 egresses onto 53, but I think that this opens a can of worms in terms of allotting for that, even though it doesn't seem like our properties are near 53, that huge section of land back there where they're building townhouses does abut our property, and we have been to the planning board in fight of that, so.
Further questions or comments? We're voting on the motion of the planning board to amend the zoning bylaw. It requires a 2/3 majority to amend. All those in favor of the motion of the planning board will say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. Motion fails.